one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 11 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 10. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Eastern Ontario health officials are preparing for some pushback. That's from people worried about getting a second COVID shot that may be different, the brand, from their first. It all stems from that delay in Pfizer doses, but a healthy supply of Moderna. Here's City News reporter Jason White.
Mixing brands of vaccines has been done before, like with some childhood immunizations, and health officials insist it's safe and effective.
The response rate will be the same for one mRNA to another vaccine, and that will protect you.
Dr. Paul Roumeliotis, Medical Officer of Health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, says his staff haven't yet seen people canceling appointments or walking away from shots because they didn't like the brand they were in for. But he says this week will tell the tale.
Do we wait until they get the Pfizer? Those are the things that we're going to be looking at. At this point, I don't have a degree of magnitude of that issue.
He says they're trying to nip any vaccine mixing hesitancy in the bud through public education about the safety of mixing brands of the same type of shot. Jason White, City News.
Now, the latest snapshot of pandemic life reveals 69% of Canadians feel restrictions should remain in place as people continue to get vaccinated. Online survey by Leger and the Association for Canadian Studies also found that 2/3 of respondents say their mental health has been bad since the pandemic began. Now, 39% report gaining weight, packing on 16 pounds on average. 16% say they are drinking more alcohol. 6% have been spending more on online gambling, including sport and casino games. City News Time 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Quite a bit of cloud for most areas, but we'll get into a bit of clearing as the day wears on. The wind will settle down. It was quite mild early this morning, 19, but it's a cooler day overall. We can feel that noticeably cooler. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about 17. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 8 degrees. That's it. So a cool morning on Wednesday, but lots of sunshine, 23. For today, already reached the high, 19.
And right now in Ottawa, 11 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 10. Environment Canada is sending a team to Mascouche, Quebec to investigate the tornado that struck a suburb just north of Montreal, killing a man who took refuge inside a shed. The twister touched down just before 4 yesterday afternoon in a neighborhood in the northeastern part of the town. Quebec branch of the Red Cross is helping up to 100 people with offers of food, clothing, and temporary shelter. For the second time in less than 3 years, notorious teen killer and serial rapist Paul Bernardo is looking for parole.
The nightmare continues for the relatives of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey, having to relive the horror of what happened to their children. Their killer, Paul Bernardo, will appear before the Parole Board of Canada today, his second appearance in less than 3 years. In October 2018, he was denied day and full parole, that ruling coming in just 30 minutes, with the board calling Bernardo a dangerous offender and felt the sentence was tailored to his circumstances. Bernardo, who's now 56, has been serving a life sentence for kidnapping, torturing, and killing French and Mahaffey in the early 1990s near St. Catharines. The victims' family members are adamant Bernardo should never be allowed out of prison, their lawyer calling this a gut-wrenching experience. The French and Mahaffey families will speak via Zoom after today's hearing. I'm Laura Carney.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's shaping up to be a busy news day. We love those around here. This is the place to be. City News. Rob Snow Show. Welcome to it. Let's get right into it. On the federal political scene, there's a lot going on, and I'm pleased to say the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Erin O'Toole, will be on my program this morning. He's supposed to be with us at 11:45, so set a reminder on your phone, okay? O'Toole, Snow, 11:45, City News, Ottawa. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, news conference today, scheduled some FaceTime with the media for 11:15. We'll have some of that for you. Where would you even start if you wanted to ask the Prime Minister a question? Bill C-10, you could start there. The Internet Regulation Censorship Anti-Free Speech Bill. They shoved that through the House of Commons while everyone was tucked away in bed, actually passed dark and early this morning. So that's off to the Senate now, where mercifully, I mean, this is where we are with the Canadian Parliament. We have to count on unelected, unaccountable senators, okay? It has no hope of passing through the Senate before the parliamentary session ends later this week. Senators have made it known they're in no rush to pass that bill. But imagine, that's the sort of legislation the Liberals can manage to pass in a minority parliament. What do they try to get away with if they win a majority government? In the meantime, can anyone make heads or tails of the so-called easing of travel restrictions? This morning's National Post pokes fun at that. I quite enjoyed the cover of the National Post this morning with its front page. It notes that Ryan Reynolds can skip the quarantine hotel, but his wife, Blake Lively, must quarantine. Fully vaccinated Canadians can skip quarantine. Fully vaccinated Americans cannot. Children under 12 have to quarantine at home. They are just making it up, right? As they go along, they're making it up as they go along. They're playing pin the tail on the travel restrictions. Then there was this incredible scene in what passes for a House of Commons these days. Ian Stewart is the head of the Public Health Agency of Canada, and he was officially admonished by the Speaker. This is as close as we get to a public flogging in Canada. It hasn't been done. What happened yesterday and what passes for the House of Commons hasn't happened in 100 years. But they couldn't break him. They wanted him to bring documents. He didn't have any documents. I mean, this story, I don't know if Tom Clancy could do it up any better than this story. This is the story. Government scientists fired from a top secret government lab in Winnipeg. Security clearances removed. The RCMP investigates. CSIS, those are the spies. CSIS investigates allegations deadly viruses were sent where? The Wuhan Institute. Oh my goodness, how's that for a scandal? It just never ends with the Liberals, does it? So the opposition parties have been trying the best they can to find out what is going on here, but as usual, the Liberals are not cooperating. They say, we can't release the documents. National security. It would harm Canada's national security. The opposition wants to look at documents. The Liberals say, we can't show you the documents. National security. National security. So this fellow, Mr. Stewart, to me, he's kind of the fall guy. And the Liberals are just hanging him out to dry. There's an easy solution. They could strike a committee of MPs, go over the documents, but the Liberals want the Prime Minister to have the final say on what documents can and can't be released, and the opposition doesn't trust the Prime Minister. Would you? National security. Prime Minister news conference today, Erin O'Toole a little bit later on the Robb Snow Show. Then there's what's happening at Ottawa City Hall. Very important city council meeting tomorrow. Gets front page treatment from the newspapers. This morning, hard times. Screams the Ottawa Sun. Hard times. Jan Harder, Barrhaven Ward, chair of the planning committee. What is her political future? She's not running again in the next municipal election, as far as I know, but what a way to go out. A report from the Integrity Commissioner calls on the City Council to dock Councillor Harder 15 days' pay and remove her as chair of the Planning Committee, one of the most powerful positions in the city government. The city council is supposed to be developing a new official plan these days. Not the greatest time to be switching out the chair of the planning committee. But she stands accused of tainting the planning process. Accused of violating the city council's code of conduct, accused of conflict of interest in hiring the daughter of a local development consultant and awarding sole source contracts to the same development consultant, all the while city council is voting on projects involving the same development consultant. That's it in a nutshell. It's a big mess. Big mess for the mayor. Jan Harder denies it all, says it's a politically motivated attack, and she has a target on her back. No question about it. The left wing of the council, they would be quite pleased, I would suspect, if one of the mayor's reliable allies took a hit like this. But whether you're a lefty councillor or you're a member of the so-called Watson Club, you can't ignore the recommendations of the Integrity Commissioner. Why have an Integrity Commissioner at all? So we are getting into this in a big way this morning. We're going local, but big picture. Robb Barnes from Ecology, Ottawa will be here. And so will Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University. And I want to talk about this during the talkback hour as well. Beyond the Jan Harder story of the day, scandal of the day at Ottawa City Hall, how do you think your city council is doing? Generally speaking, the job performance of your city council. I want you to be the judge of that. I mean, the election's still more than a year away, but you be the judge of that. Okay? Failed LRT launches. All kinds of questions about the procurement for Phase 2 of light rail. We have this billion-dollar bus buy happening tomorrow at City Hall. I seem to be the only one that even wants to talk about that. All well and good. Fingers crossed they work. And think about it. How many councillors have been in hot water during this term of council? How many? At least 5 that I can think of. Think about the big files, okay? Social housing. Is that better now than it was at the beginning of this term of council? Social housing? What about the wait time to get a unit in social housing? I am told that is as long as it's ever been, 10, 12 years. You put your name on the wait list, you get your name on the wait list for a unit in social housing. Somebody from Ottawa Community Housing will call you in the year 2031. Mr. Snow, your unit is ready. The opioid crisis, the addiction crisis in Ottawa, is that getting any better? By all accounts, it is as bad as ever, right? The roads, are they any better? Snow removal, is it any better? Your taxes, have they gone down? Ha! Can you even afford to live in Ottawa anymore? How is the city council doing, in your opinion? Would you re-elect your city councilor? Would you re-elect the mayor? He's still very popular. I suspect if he runs, he'll win. Probably in a landslide. We'll get into it all during the talkback hour, 750-1310. We do it every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. 750-1310, hottest hour in talk radio in town. Be part of it. Just while I have a moment, I received some sad news yesterday. A longtime listener, and loyal listeners will know, Eric in Barrhaven, a frequent contributor to our program. Eric in Barrhaven, Eric Stephen was his real name. He passed away this weekend. He was 69. Far too young. Fell ill, came on quite suddenly. I was just thinking about Eric just the other day. We had not heard from him in a while. So that was very sad news to hear yesterday. When I think of Eric, I think Eric was this program. He was our citizen scientist. He was a retired government microbiologist. And his calls, I found them interesting and at times invaluable during the course of the pandemic. You know, that call-in hour, some of you do kind of become like part of a family. And maybe that sounds kind of corny. Eric might probably think, Rob, that's corny. Stop it. But I talk to some of you more than I talk to members of my own family. And I wonder about you when I don't hear from you in a while. So that it affected me when I heard that news yesterday. And I know Eric, he would be so into today's show with the news about this Winnipeg lab and Jan Harder's political problems. He used to write to Jan Harder all the time. He's Eric from Barrhaven. So join me in passing along our sympathies to his family and rest easy, friend. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
So the birth of absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. So I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's the, been the big democratic sweep of, like, in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is like everybody, we went down to 2 employees from 25, and we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about like the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of like pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. But we'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of like the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg, and you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Robb Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
The City Council will weigh the latest report from the Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Marlowe, and his recent recommendation that Councillor Jan Harder be removed as the chair of the Planning Committee and be docked 15 days' pay. Let's begin to explore this issue in some depth this morning with Robb Barnes from Ecology, Ottawa. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to hear from you, sir. What should happen to Councillor Harder, in your opinion?
Well, from our perspective, we think it's important that the mayor honor the findings of the Integrity Commissioner's report. And the reason, it might sound strange, we're a local environmental organization. Why do we care? Public faith in council integrity and transparency is really important to action on environmental issues. The question we ask ourselves is, how can Ottawa residents really engage in good faith with a system that shows real or perceived conflicts of interest? And that's essentially what the Integrity Commissioner found. So it's really up to the mayor to demonstrate whether or not they're going to adhere to the recommendations of their own Integrity Commissioner.
It's not,
and if they don't, there's a big problem.
Okay. It's not personal, you're saying?
No, not at all. No, I mean, you could easily, like, looking at the facts, these could be a completely good faith relationship between all the parties involved. Everyone meant well. No one meant any harm. The challenge is, in this particular case, if councillor is employing someone, a developer's daughter, and there's unremunerated gifts kind of passing between the two, the developer and the councillor, it ends up begging a lot of questions. And so, again, real or perceived conflict is the kind of the threshold that we're looking at.
Sure.
And for us as an organization that tries to engage the public, we get so often people coming to us and saying, I don't really believe in engaging. The city's mechanisms are broken. I don't trust City Hall. And if the mayor ignores the findings, he's feeding into that cynicism,
right.
Unfortunately.
City Hall doesn't listen to me. They have public consultations. They fall on deaf ears. It kind of reaffirms all the worst instincts that people have about, quote unquote, fighting City Hall, right?
That's right.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's hard enough on a good day to get people engaged. And so
sure.
This makes it just all that more difficult.
Okay. Would it have been okay if she had hired the development consultant's daughter and it was made public and there were recusals? Do you think that would have been okay?
I think that would have been helpful. I'm not an expert on the kind of intricacies. I read through the report of the Integrity Commissioner. In terms of, what are the various thresholds? I mean, I think, he kind of hits on two parts, right? Which is that kind of what looks kind of like an open door between the developer and the councillor's office, and then those unremunerated gifts, which is, a smaller portion of the findings, right? So two sections of the code have been violated. Would it have been all right if there were public recusals? I mean, for sure it would have been helpful. And I think that it would have put us in a better position. Right now, what we're looking at is an Integrity Commissioner saying one thing, and then the councillor saying, look, I don't see any credibility to these arguments. So they're really kind of worlds apart in terms of their positioning. So those public recusals would have gotten us, I think, closer together.
Okay. Discussions and debates are happening now about the city's official plan. How problematic is it to have this happening right now? Swapping out the planning committee chair at this particular time.
Yeah, I think it's a huge challenge. Councillor Harder herself said at the beginning of the official plan process, and she kind of joked, she said, I want this to be more popular than the plastic cow. There was this plastic cow removed from a, restaurant rooftop in Orleans.
That's right. I do remember. I remember that now that you bring it up.
Yeah. So, that's a challenge to all of us. We're trying to engage the public and get people fired up.
Down with the cow. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm sorry.
And so, there it is. She laid the challenge down for the whole public. But if people are trying to engage and they're seeing this, it's a problem. Now, if the mayor, again, accepts the Integrity Commissioner's findings, we'll see that there's no inconsistency, right? We'll say, okay, look, the mayor set up this body. They're following the rules of the body, and that's just life. And so we're going to, we're doing due diligence and respecting those findings. But if the mayor ignores those findings tomorrow, that's a big problem. And I think then you'll see huge cynicism around engagement with the new official plan. And you might even see, groups saying, that, who knows what it'll spark in the community. But I'm sure that lots and lots of people will be very upset.
Okay. She calls it, this is the quote in the paper today, a political attack masquerading as an integrity complaint. What do you think of that?
Yeah, looking at the facts of the case, I mean, I don't know who launched the complaint. The integrity commissioner said it was a member of the public. I don't know anything beyond that. So I don't, who knows what the motivation was behind that anonymous public member. But it did pass the threshold of the integrity commissioner, and there's 101 pages detailing how it did that. So to me, who launched it and why is almost besides the point. It's much more about the substance of the complaint. Is there legitimacy to the complaint? And if so, what do we do about it? And I think the recommendations are, quite simple. She just that the councillor step down from that position, because her role as head of the planning committee is one of the most powerful in the whole city.
Yep.
And, if someone at that level has real or perceived conflicts of interest, we've got a problem with public faith in the system as a whole.
If she is removed as the planning chair, who should replace her?
I know there's a detailed process for that, and I'm sure that there will be a number of candidates. Everyone will put their hands up. So, we don't have a favorite horse in the race, so to speak.
All right.
As long as they've got, experience and can, again, demonstrate that they comply with, all of the requirements of the code of conduct, then, anyone's fine in that position, as we don't have a preferred option.
What is most worrying for you at Ecology Ottawa now about the planning process as it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're always on a knife's edge in that what we're trying to do is often create some change at City Hall, to better improve Ottawa's environment. And so sometimes we'll oppose things at City Hall, right? But then we need the public to stay engaged and to trust in the system if we're going to make any of this work. And so our biggest worry is that there's so much cynicism that we lose that level of trust in the system, and that, people stop showing up for meetings. Politicians might complain that they've got too many meetings in the day, and I hear them and I get it. But the biggest problem, a bigger problem for Ottawa, is that no one shows up to these things, no one engages, and then all of a sudden they're going to be flying blind. They're going to be making decisions with no public input, and our municipal democracy will be kind of weaker for it. So that's my worry. So it's obviously we care about environmental issues, but the democratic elements that allow people to engage on those issues are absolutely critical as well.
Okay, thank you, Robb Barnes.
My pleasure.
Nice to hear from you. From Ecology Ottawa, that's Robb Barnes, the professor. Ian Lee on this and other issues right after the news on City News.
$213 monthly at 2.5% for 39 months with $950 down. Conditions apply.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 12 degrees and Smiths Falls, 11. Here's what's making news this hour. Some providing vaccine shots say they are seeing people walk away from clinics after being offered Moderna instead of the Pfizer vaccine. A shipment delay this week from Pfizer meant there aren't as many doses in our province to go around. Now, health experts say Moderna and Pfizer are basically the same. They can safely be used instead of the other. Teen killer, serial rapist Paul Bernardo set for a parole hearing today. The horrific crimes he committed in the 80s and early 90s included kidnapping, torture, and the killing of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey near St. Catharines, Ontario. The designated dangerous offender has been eligible for full parole for more than 3 years. Relatives of victims are adamant he should never be allowed out of prison. A bill designed to regulate program from media streaming services could infringe on individual free speech. That's according to critics of the federal government's Bill C-10. It has now passed the House, moving on to the Senate, but it could die there. That process could be halted by an election later this year, and that would kill the bill. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Robb Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
And we're back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
There's a rumor, that's all it is, that you want to run for mayor. Is that true?
Let me unpack that. Several people have contacted me in the last 6 months, 12 months saying, have you thought about it? So I'm not saying I want to run for mayor. Let's be very clear. Several people have contacted me, written me emails, and that sort of thing. You and I talk about the city of Ottawa, and the province facing it. I mean, I'm obviously deeply unhappy. We're probably going to talk about the various issues over the next 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes.
Yep.
I think that there's a lot of people unhappy. The mayor and council's leadership are often, and I actually call it an alternate universe. You know, you would think that they were the responsible for global warming at the United Nations, and they're not. They're not even responsible for it in Canada. The federal government is the signatory to the Paris Accord, not the city of Ottawa. The city of Ottawa is
I don't want to get too off track, okay? I don't want to get too off track.
I'm not off track.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the city of Ottawa, then I mean by that the mayor and the council are off track.
Yes.
They're focusing on things that they shouldn't be focusing on while not looking after their knitting. Who's minding the store, to use that famous old joke, the punchline.
Sure.
You know, who's minding the store? And they're not minding the store. They're off trying to solve global warming for the world. And I admire that, but then they should step down, quit their jobs as mayor or council, and then go and work for the UN, the International Environmental Agency.
Move to Vancouver, plant some trees. Move to Vancouver, plant some
whatever. You know. Yeah. And so instead, they're passing laws that discriminate against young people and immigrants by restricting growth to privilege the already very privileged people in the urban core, where I live. So I know all about this.
Yep.
They're turning us from millionaires into multi-millionaires by creating a deliberate, socially engineered shortage of housing. and driving up the prices, and then talking about, building a 40-story tower in the middle of Alta Vista. I mean, it just reminds me of the 50s and in Toronto in the 60s when they drove the Spadina Expressway right through the middle of a neighborhood and broke it up. And now today they're not doing it with speedway or interstates or freeways. They're doing it with high-rise buildings. So what I'm trying to say, Rob, is this: I hope and want and pray that a moderate centrist candidate emerges to run for mayor, and for that matter, some of the council, to replace some of the councillors, so we can return to normality instead of the ideologically driven council and mayor that we've had for the last 4 years that has gone off track. And
okay, but if in your opinion someone like that does not materialize,
then I'll have to look. I'll have to look at it. I mean, I feel very strongly about this, but believe me, I mean, I'm 68 years old. I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I'm hoping some young whippersnapper comes along. I have great confidence in the next generation. I'm not one of these boomers sitting around saying, "Oh, woe be to us." You know, the young people, they're taking us to hell in a handcart. I don't believe that. I think I see our students, my students, every year, and I think that there's some phenomenal people out there, young people, and in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and. So I'm being very frank with you. I'm going to watch and see who comes forward. Okay. I hope somebody in their 50s comes forward who's pro-growth, who is reasonable, who doesn't want to destroy neighborhoods,
pro-business,
who doesn't want to discriminate against young people or immigrants, as the mayor and some of our councillors have done in their votes on council over the last 4 years.
Okay, all right. You did run for office one time before.
I did, and I ran.
Who did you run for?
I ran in Ottawa Centre in '93, and I knew I wasn't. I'll be very frank with you.
Federally or provincially or?
Federally, Ottawa Centre. Okay. Against Mac Harb and Marianne Dewar. And I got along famously, believe it or not, with Marianne Dewar. Yeah. Didn't get along well with Mac Harb, and I ran knowing I was going to lose. How did I know that? Because I did my research and I looked up the voting record of through Elections Canada, showing every election all the way for that riding, all the way back to 1867. Yeah. And in every general election, it had always voted Liberal, and I think once NDP. So it's a hardcore left of center riding.
If you're the Conservative there, you're kind of the cannon fodder, right?
Yeah, so, but I ran because I wanted to discuss at the time. The Liberals and the NDP were absolutely denying that the debt or the deficit was a problem. They said it was a conspiracy to go after low-income people, and I was just so angry at that position at the time that I ran. I wanted to talk about fiscal policy all the time, and because I'm a fiscal conservative, pro-market, pro-growth, fiscal conservative, and as you know, Chrétien, you may remember, Chrétien and the others were denying, no crisis, a fiscal crisis, and then only a year. The election was in October of '93, and then Paul Martin went down to New York, and the bond market basically read the riot act to him, and he came back in shock. And then they announced the largest downsizing in Canadian history. In other words, they went 180 degrees in the direction that I was advocating that they go in to start taking the deficit.
Right. And then they had to defend it, and there was actually a public buy-in for it. So that's interesting. Okay, so let's leave that. Our headline here for the Rob Snow Show will be, he would not confirm or deny.
Okay.
No. Okay, it's interesting that you're being approached. I find that interesting. Okay, it means people are listening to you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's move along to city business. We're kind of local today. So do you think Councillor Harder should be removed as the chair of the Planning Committee in light of the findings of the Integrity Commissioner?
I don't, and I'll explain why. But if she does, I also believe in the rule of law, and if the council votes to remove her, then they vote to remove her, and that's a legitimate decision. But I'll explain why, because I've always advocated, ethics in government and so forth, and I've been very clear on that. But I think that we've gone too far in not in the idea of ethics in government. That I absolutely support. But this idea that the moment there's a whiff or a taint around a person, you got to literally remove them from politics or remove them from their position is, I think, far too far. There is a method that's been evolved in the legal system for, going back 100 years or more, and it's called recusal. all of us are conflicted because we know people. That's to be human is to be in conflict. You're in conflicts all the time. I'm on a committee at Carleton where faculty that want to appeal their salary because they're below other colleagues and market prices and so forth. There's all kinds of data. I'm on that committee. But if somebody comes in that I know or is in my unit, I recuse myself. Because that's how we've evolved it. Supreme Court, the superior courts do this all the time. Yeah. They recuse themselves. So the proper way to go is for Jan Harder to say, "Look, I will recuse myself from any decision that comes up that involves the developer that I."
Yeah, but the report, Professor, has already found that she didn't do that.
Well, I read, I haven't read the full report, to be fair. I've just read the newspaper accounts. Yeah. But I read that there was no evidence of any financial wrongdoing, that she didn't.
Well, there may have, no, but it's about the perception. It's about, it's not about whether that happened. It's about the perception of whether that happened, right?
This is where I'm going. I think that we've gone so far down that road that we're demanding a standard in politics that I think it's too far. I mean, the solution is recusal. And it is not to say, okay, that's it. We, cut that person's off with their head. Like the Mad Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. Off with their head, off with their head, off with their head.
Right.
Instead of doing that, because there's many good people that can go into politics, there's people that are there now, we should not be saying, let's defenestrate them, let's destroy them, let's throw them out, just because they have a, quote, appearance of a conflict. I make a sharp distinction between appearance of conflict and somebody who did something that was in a conflict of interest. They lined their own pocket and they didn't disclose it. By giving themselves contracts to their close friend or to their children or something like that. For sure, if you have actually benefited inappropriately, illegally, that must be punished. But when we get into appearances, appearances is such a fuzzy-wuzzy thing.
Oh, I think you're being very easy on her.
I'm just saying she can recuse herself. They can demand that she, there's so much reporting going on. They knew she was a friend. She didn't keep this a secret. She's been a friend of this guy for 25 years, so it's well known when something comes before council.
Yeah, they go back to the city of Nepean days, apparently. Okay, look, I want to, so you don't,
I would just simply
you think it's too harsh to remove her, okay? All right, fine. All right. What do you think overall, generally speaking, there are these themes that come out of City Hall quite frequently. If I said to you, developers have too much control over the city, what would developers call the shots in the city? What would you say to that?
Well, I would, as I'm evidence-based, I would say if that's the case, then they would. Then why did we just pass laws that restrict the development? And we just did. In fact, we radically restricted development. So the city...
With the urban boundary...
the urban boundaries. The developers can't be in running the show because if they had been, they would never have...
It's interesting. People on the left say the developers run the show, and people on the right say the unions run the show. So who's running the show, I guess, depends on showtime.
I would use a different phrase. I would say the ideologues are running the show right now. Okay. And I really mean that. These are ideologues. The earth is completely on fire. We're all going to die in 10 years. We've got to spend billions and billions and billions, on electric buses and electric everything, and and we're demonizing oil and gas, even though, and I don't deny global warming. Of course, it's real, but it is not the catastrophic view that is claimed by people like Ms. Carney. And the former chief scientist under Barack Obama has a new book out and saying that exact thing. He says, yes, global warming is serious; it's a problem, but it is not apocalypse now, as the extremists the ideologues are claiming.
Are the developers too cozy with the councillors?
I understand that, Ari. By the way, the only developers I've ever known, I was on the other side in Lansdowne Park, and I was fighting them, and they were saying nasty things about me. Okay, which is fine.
So was I. I still do when it comes to Lansdowne Park.
And that comes with the territory, okay? Yeah. So anyone who thinks that I'm in the pocket or I don't know any developers except the ones I took on, and they don't like me.
Look, if we were in the pockets of the developers, we wouldn't be doing this right now.
That's right. Yeah. Believe me, I just don't deal with developers because I don't, and I'm not in that business. Look, I don't consult with that business. But to your question, it's a legitimate question. I think then it's inevitable when you have an industry called development, real estate development, which is so interconnected with the development of any city anywhere, and it's a very capital intensive. This is not buying 99-cent pencils. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You're building you are building the longest life assets of all known to us. Computers don't last 50, 100, 200 years. Nothing does except build real estate. That's why it's called that great line in Gone with the Wind. The father of Scarlett O'Hara, he said, buy real estate. It's the only thing in this world that's real. And it is real, and it is incredibly expensive. And so they necessarily, because the city's regulated, understandably so, they necessarily have to develop relationships with the councilors, with the planning department, because there's billions and billions of dollars on the line, and the city wants to make sure that the building's built in the proper way, according to the rules and regulations. And of course, the developers want to build it to get their investment completed so they can get a return on their investment. So inevitably, they're going to have to get to know each other and work closely with each other. There's no way around that.
Okay. We'll come back. Glebe politics. Oh, my. There's a controversy involving Powell Street. Is it the privatization of Powell Street in the Glebe? I can't wait to hear more about this.
Yes.
From Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. This is City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to the environment or to our bodies. We have fun stuff, so really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Back with Professor Ian Lee. He's the poor professor from the Glebe. So he's standing up for the downtrodden of the Glebe, as I understand it, with What is the Powell Street controversy,
Okay,
Professor?
I want everyone to really pay attention to this. Anyone out there in Radio Land, don't tune out saying, "Oh, it's just about the glebe." This conversation I'm about to unpack and debrief you on.
All right.
It has ramifications for the entire city. Okay? Now, Powell, for those who don't know, is a very, very wealthy street in the glebe. It's in a part of the glebe that's sometimes referred to colloquially as High Glebe. As you know, I jokingly but accurately tell you I live in the back end of the glebe where house prices are lower than High Glebe. Powell is right next to Clemo.
I see. I have it here. It goes Renfrew, Powell, Clemo. Right. Okay.
And Powell and Clemo are about as high as you can get. I haven't checked the real estate prices lately in case somebody wants to challenge me and say, no, they're more expensive on 3rd Avenue. The point is the avenues, Powell and Clemo, that's as high as you get in the glebe. Okay? And what they've done, so get right to the point, is with the either the advocacy of Councillor Menard or his strong support by someone else who brought it forward, they have put up signs saying only local residents can go down Powell.
Oh, really?
Okay. In other words, if you are from anywhere else in the glebe, or from Canada or Orleans, anywhere else in the city, you pay taxes. These are public streets.
Sure.
This is not a private road to a private cottage where you have to pay for snow removal. These are public streets, paid for, owned by the city of Ottawa on behalf of the taxpayers of Ottawa. And so what they're doing is basically try to turn Powell into a gated community for the most privileged people.
A gated community, okay.
Well, it is. If you say only people on Powell can go in it. But you can say, well, so what?
If I was going down Percy Street, I would see a sign that said...
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, don't turn here. You can't go down Powell, it says. And I don't know if this has been backed up by a bylaw. I doubt it.
Right.
I cannot imagine that this is getting through the legal department of the city of Ottawa, essentially privatizing a public street. But think about it. If Powell can do it, then why can't Percy? Why can't all the other streets do it? So that maybe, I'm going to be a little bit flippant here and a little bit humorous. Maybe this is a conspiracy by the Greens to stop us from driving our cars, because if the only street you can drive down is your own street, well, then your car is not very useful, is it?
So what is the excuse for doing this? Like, what's the rationale? What do they say? Why do? Okay.
By the way, first off, I don't want people to think that everyone in the glebe supports this. There's a real debate going on in the glebe because other people, people in the glebe use each other's streets, obviously, just like people in Canada use the streets near where they live. You drive down your street to go to another street, to go to another street, to go to the Loblaws, or to go to the Sobeys, or to go to the Metro, or to go to the soccer, or whatever. We all drive on all these streets, and they're maintained, and I'm talking garbage collection goes down that street, paid for with tax dollars, snow removal, remediation if there's a sewer breakage, and the sewer line breaks or the water main breaks, and so it's all maintained with the $4 billion that the city of Ottawa spends each year. Okay, and so what they're doing is they're saying, well, we don't. I presume it's the traffic. Okay, that's got to be the motivator. They just don't like cars going down their street. Well, that's the price you pay when you live in a city. You don't like cars and streets. Well, move out to the country and find a really remote rural place, and you can live there to your heart's content. But when you live in a city, we make compromises, and one of those compromises is people drive down your street that don't live on your street. There's people that drive down my street all the time. Because I'm very close to Lansdowne, there's always people going down my street looking for parking, for free parking, because you can park, for 3 hours on the side streets for free. And okay, that's just the price of being there. And so this they're trying to establish, I think, a precedent, and it's a very dangerous precedent because if Powell can do it, why not all the other streets of the glebe? And if the glebe can do it, why not all the streets in Alta Vista? Why not all the streets in Sandy Hill? Why not all the streets in Westboro? Why not the streets in Canada? So that only the people that can drive on your street where you live are the people that live and own on that street. This is a incredibly bad idea. It's incredibly selfish because, they say, progressives claim all the time they believe in caring and sharing. Where is the caring and sharing? If you're saying, don't you dare drive your car down my street. And remember, this street connects from Bank Street over to Bronson. So some people cut across, sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's the nature of streets. You use them to get from one street to another street.
Yeah.
That is the nature of public streets. But what's so wrong about this is they fully expect, clearly, that the garbage collection will continue to be paid for by the taxpayer.
Oh, sure.
They want police and fire protection.
Police, fire, paramedics, paramedics. Yeah.
Paramedics, they want snow removal, but they're saying, but you hoi polloi that pay the bills, yes, they pay taxes. We all do. But they're saying you can't come down our street. And I mean, this is really, really, I mean, it is selfishness taken to the extreme.
Scandalous.
It's greedy and selfish.
I said Powell Street. It's Powell Avenue.
Sorry, Powell Avenue. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. I've driven down it before. I've driven all through the Glade. I've driven all over Ottawa.
Yeah.
I know Ottawa.
That was before he used to get stopped. That's before he used to get stopped and say, "Papers, please." Where are you from? Hey, you're not from Powell Avenue. Get out of here.
Exactly. Think about that. What are we going to have? Identity police saying, I want to stop you and see your driver's license? I thought progressives were against random stops by the police. How are they going to enforce it? Are people going to come out and stop me because I'm driving down the street and they recognize I'm not from their street?
So it says local traffic only. Local traffic. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, think about it. And so people, the rest of Ottawa should be enraged at this attempt to gate their street and privatize a public street without any public debate whatsoever, driven by selfish greed.
Unbelievable. That is a heck of a story. That's a good story, actually. I quite like that story, yeah. I must ask you, we don't have time to get into all of this other stuff. We'll talk about equalization some other day. But tomorrow at the council meeting, they're doing this $1 billion bus buy. What do you think about electric buses? 450 electric buses and the charging equipment, all told $1 billion. That's still a lot of money last time I checked.
I think it's premature for a very clear reason. And I think it's clear to everybody. We don't yet know, and anyone who claims they know, starting with the mayor and council, are blowing smoke. Mm-hmm. We do not yet know, post-COVID, how many people are going to be returning to work. If it's 10%, we're going to need lots of buses, for sure. And if it's, some low number. But what if it's 30 or 40 or 50% of people continue to work? I'm hearing, and I wish the council would be talking about this, I'm hearing that behind the scenes, very senior people in the government of Canada are working, these are my words, but they capture it nicely. They're working on decentralization and downsizing of the federal presence in Ottawa. Decentralization means moving some of these excellent, well-paid jobs and spreading them out across the country. That's decentralization.
Yeah.
Downsizing is where you get rid of some of those huge buildings in the downtown because of the cost is staggering to the federal government, and you tell those people at Transport Canada or whatever, you're going to be working from home from now on. So if large numbers don't go into the downtown, and I'm talking, let's say, 30%, 40%, 50%, and this is being discussed in serious media across in Globe and Mail, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and nobody yet knows what percentage are going to return to work post-pandemic. We won't know for another 2 or 3 years. So I think that this is premature. They may be buying a white elephant, or shall we call it a green elephant, where they're buying buses that won't be needed if indeed there's a fundamental realignment of people using mass transit. We don't yet know. So I'm not saying don't buy green buses. I'm saying let's wait for another 2 or 3 years until things settle down and we see how the downtown is going to evolve. I believe, and this is just an opinion, I don't have the data yet, nobody does. I believe that the downtown is going to go through a fundamental restructuring. I believe that the biggest pressing problem facing the city of Ottawa is not the global warming, it's the fact that, let me speak very quickly and bluntly, the government of the city of Ottawa's sugar daddy, the city of Ottawa, sugar daddy, called the Government of Canada, is about to decentralize and downsize, and it's going to have a huge impact on the city of Ottawa, starting with the $500 million. That's $500 million a year that the city of Ottawa gets in grants in lieu of taxes from the federal government based on the footprint that they have downtown. If you cut that footprint by 50%, you're going to cut the grants flowing into Ottawa, the city of Ottawa, by roughly 50%. So Ottawa is facing some very tough decisions going forward about our future, our economic development, and there isn't a soul that I'm aware of on City Council talking about the very real strategic existential problems facing our city. They're off trying to be the UN Secretary General.
Well, you know, one more reason why Mayor Ian Lee has a nice ring to it. Okay, we got to run. We're over time. We'll talk next week. We'll pick it up next week. Great fun this week. Thank you. Bye-bye. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University, here every Tuesday morning. Now you know why. This is City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 12 degrees, in Smiths Falls, 11. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A day after the federal government unveiled Phase 1 of border reopening, the Prime Minister is set to address Canadians a little bit later on this morning. Here is City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The Prime Minister will be holding his regular COVID update, and his government's new quarantine exemptions will likely take a focus. Fully vaccinated Canadians, permanent residents, and foreign nationals who are deemed essential travelers who are currently allowed to enter the country will no longer have to quarantine after July 5th. But you can expect the Prime Minister to face questions about why the government has not released a full comprehensive reopening plan, with no metrics so far for when we can see non-essential travel resume. It's something business and travel and tourism groups, as well as many politicians on both sides of the border, have been calling for. I'm also told the Prime Minister will be giving an update today on vaccine numbers, and he'll be announcing a new benefit for Canadians. In the House of Commons, the Minister for Disability Inclusion does have a bill on the notice paper called an Act to Reduce Poverty and to Support the Financial Security of Persons with Disabilities by establishing the Canada Disability Benefit. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 10:03. We do have new case numbers for COVID-19 in Ontario today. 296 cases being reported province-wide. Of that number, 11 are in Ottawa. There is one new case in Renfrew, none in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and due to a recalculation, 8 fewer cases being reported now in Eastern Ontario. City News Time, 10:03. A seventh cat has been found dead in the west end of the city. Ottawa police called around Woodruff and Knoxdale for a dead cat. This was yesterday afternoon around 3 o'clock. Now, 6 cats have been found in that general area of the city since the beginning of the month. Police have said they are looking into this suspicious incident, but have not said if it's connected to the other cats found dead in the area. Now your forecast, here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Quite a bit of cloud for most areas, but we'll get into a bit of clearing as the day wears on. The wind will settle down. It was quite mild early this morning, 19, but it's a cooler day overall. We can feel that noticeably cooler. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about 17. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 8 degrees. That's it. So a cool morning on Wednesday, but lots of sunshine, 23. For today, already reached the high, 19.
And right now in Ottawa, 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 11. Well, as you're having your mid-morning coffee, some good news. That hot cup of joe may just be good for your liver. It's a new study out of the UK suggesting coffee drinkers 21% less likely to develop chronic liver disease, 20% less likely to develop fatty liver disease, and almost 50% less likely to die from chronic liver disease than a non-coffee drinker. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
3 questions for you. City Hall in focus. Big city council meeting tomorrow. 3 questions. Are you pleased with the job your city council is doing here in the city of Ottawa? That's question number 1. Question number 2. Are you pleased with the job that your city councillor is doing? Do you think your city councillor is doing a good job? Okay, that's 2A and 2B. Question 3. Are you pleased with the job that Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is doing? How do you answer those 3 questions? 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Stop me before I get all wound up because it's local politics and I can get all wound up. I want to keep it local, but I want to go big picture. Okay? The business of city council is all over the front pages of the local papers this morning. It's been in the news for days now. This news about Councillor Jan Harder. Chair of the Planning Committee, a veteran city councillor, represents one of the largest wards in the city, Barrhaven. She is an ally of the mayor. I don't think there's any question about that. And she has now really put the mayor and the rest of the mayor's allies in a very difficult position. Because the Integrity Commissioner has issued a report. It is a whopper, doozy, double cheeseburger of a report, ladies and gentlemen, ruling that this councillor broke the city's code of conduct over conflict of interest. Now, she says she did no such thing and that this is a politically motivated attack. You can be the judge of that. 750-1310 is our call-in line, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. And Mr. Marlowe, the Integrity Commissioner says Jan Harder needs to be reprimanded, and you need to do that, members of City Council. You need to reprimand her. And she should be removed as the chair of the Planning Committee. And she should be docked 15 days' pay. To me, it would be kind of a sad end, but maybe an inevitable end for Councillor Harder. She's not running again, as far as I know. Look, I don't know Jan Harder personally on any kind of personal level. I've never had coffee with her. I've never had lunch with her. I have interviewed her many, many times over the years, just in this capacity, doing a radio show like this. She's tough. She's opinionated. I think she cares about her community. I think she cares about the city. I think she has had a great career of public service to the city, and I think it would be sad if this is kind of the closing footnote to it. But if you are a city councillor, can you really ignore the recommendations of a 101-page report from the Integrity Commissioner? I don't see how you can do that. I just don't think you can do that, and it all comes to a head tomorrow. I think here, I guess this is how I would describe it. There are too many no-nos in this report. You go through this report and you find yourself saying, that's a no-no. Okay, that's a no-no. And there are too many of those in this report, right? That's a no-no. Councillor Harder hired the daughter of a development consultant to do work in her office. And there's the issue of sole source contracts awarded to the same development consultant, the Sterling Group, hired to provide briefing notes and planning advice. All the while, the Sterling Group is involved with property development in the city of Ottawa. And look, outside the mayor, Councillor Harder is the most powerful member of the city council when it comes to property development in the city of Ottawa. And we have members of the city council who view property developers as bad people, evil people. And they certainly think that property developers have way too much power and the relationship between members of council and property developers is way too cozy. So this report puts a target squarely on Councillor Harder's back. And like I said, it's a report with no-nos. Oh, that's a no-no. Oh, that's a no-no. So I can only imagine what maneuvers the mayor is trying to pull off behind the scenes right now in advance of this meeting tomorrow. Because Councillor Harder is a part of the mayor's majority. So this has got to sting. The Integrity Commissioner has said the planning process has been tainted as a result of this. But let's go above and beyond the City Hall wheeling and dealing that is probably happening right now, the horse trading that's probably happening right now. And maybe look at this city council through a wider lens. I mean, the municipal election in Ottawa is still more than a year away. But do you really think that your city council is doing a good job? Do you think your city councillor is doing a good job? Is the mayor doing a good job? How do you answer those questions at 750-1310? I mean, it's been an extraordinary year and a half because of the pandemic. And for that, I think we can all let a lot of things slide. It hasn't exactly been business as usual for any government, any level of government, for anybody. A lot of the regular city businesses had to be on hold. It's been put on hold. And the city has basically been in a state of emergency for like a year and a half. And in my own opinion, I don't really have too many complaints about how the city has managed the pandemic. Most of my criticisms, I think, would amount to nothing more than nitpicking. And I think the local end of the vaccination program has been outstanding. If you could critique the pandemic, you could say we waited too long to have a mask bylaw. Maybe you should have done that sooner. I think we waited too long to have a mask mandate for OC Transpo. Could say that. I think in the early days, Ottawa bylaw was overzealous ticketing people. But you could also make the case that in the latter days, it became too lax at ticketing people. So bylaw can't win for losing. And so how fair is that criticism? One of the biggest issues throughout the entirety of the pandemic was not right-sizing OC Transpo and reflecting the dramatic drop in ridership at OC Transpo. It boggles my mind that OC Transpo was running for most of the pandemic at 100% capacity when ridership was down 90% at one time. Irresponsible management, in my opinion, by city councillors. But it's mostly nitpicking. And for the most part, I think the city government has done as well as it could be expected. Is it a gold medal performance? I don't know. I don't know. But then you move beyond the pandemic and then just look at some other issues. I mean, I've been hammering away at this $1 billion electric bus ride. This has all come together in about 2 weeks, this plan to spend $1 billion on electric buses. No pilot program, no public consultation. We don't know anything about whether these buses really are going to work for the Ottawa public transit system. We don't know if they're going to work in winter. It smells a lot like aren't we just setting ourselves up for a repeat of LRT Phase 1? But nobody else seems worried about it. Maybe, Rob, just get over it, whatever, move on. The official plan is fantasy land. It's made up in fantasy land, dreamed up by ideologues in the planning department. It relies way too much on intensification. It's going to make the city even more unaffordable than it already is from a housing perspective. People who live in neighborhoods of single-family homes, you're just going to see more of those older homes on nice lots torn down and replaced with fourplexes and sixplexes. It's filled with fairy tales and fantasies of 15-minute neighborhoods, dreamed up by people who, it seems, they don't even live in the city they're planning. And it's doing more already to drive more people out of the city because people just can't afford to live in Ottawa anymore. I could go on, but I won't. I'll stop here. So call me. 750-1310, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So yeah, we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. The other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. It's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say
and call now.
613-750-1310.
Are you pleased with the job your city council is doing? Are you pleased with the job your city councillor is doing? In your ward, do you think in your ward your city councillor is doing a good job? Are you pleased with the job that the Ottawa mayor is doing? Jim Watson, he has his hands full this week. How do you answer those questions? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Steve, you're on City News. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim Watson.
Jim Watson. Do you think
Marconi?
he's doing a good job? Do you think he's doing
No, definitely
okay.
not. He's put Ottawa in the poops as far as housing goes, transit goes, everything.
Okay.
I think he's put Ottawa in the real poops. The poor people are having a really rough time finding a place to live.
Well, it's increasingly unaffordable to live in this city. It's okay if you're in your place already right now, but my
if you're trying to
gosh.
find a new place, it's impossible. They want $1,600, $1,500 for a one-bedroom in Ottawa now.
Yes, and that those are for rentals. The price of a house is $700,000 now.
One thing I have to say, Jan Harder has been involved with planning, working with land developers, right? I worked with land developers. I worked in construction. I'm telling you right now, I think the police should investigate her and check her bank account.
Oh, come on. There's nothing. Come on, Steve. Behave yourself.
Corruption.
Come on, corruption. There's no evidence that anything like that is going on. Come on now, Steve. Be better. You got to do better, Steve, than that. Paul in Ottawa. Paul.
Hi.
Yeah, good morning, Paul. What do you think of the job the city council is doing, Paul?
Overall, it's horrible.
Horrible. Okay.
It is. I'm not sure if you've driven on our roads.
I have driven on the roads, yes.
Yeah, they've getting progressively worse as the years have gone by.
Yes, they are. Yep.
Our debt that we're carrying as a city continues to grow, not just in small steps, but in leaps and bounds.
Okay.
And we've taken on huge commitments like the LRT and stuff. So obviously, I think if you're prudent, you're concerned about our city finances.
Okay.
And when it comes to development, developers, they seem to be getting their way. And I'll point to a development, even though this is not technically in Jan Harder's riding, it's just outside of hers, and it directly affects people that are in her riding. And that's how council last week approved a warehouse development just outside of Barrhaven. In spite of 3,126 names of people who lived in the area put their notice on a petition.
Well, there's some question about, did they all live in the area? Who knows if they all lived in the area?
Sorry, let me restate that. Members of Ottawa.
Residents of Ottawa or whatever, right? Yeah, sure.
And, once again, you can, as a group, you can, put your petition forward, but it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. And then it really comes down to, you got to ask yourself, does perception matter when it comes to your local politician, right? And I think it's critical to the role of democracy. If people don't perceive their elected officials as being,
honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got it. Then you have a problem. Now, whether they're honest or not doesn't change the fact if the electorate doesn't perceive them as honest, then we lose faith in the system. And that's an issue. And let's face it, Harder's been on that council, the Developers Council, a long time. You have to basically go through her to get everything done. It's very questionable.
Well, she's the chair of the planning committee, so I suppose you could say if you have a property development, you got to go through the planning committee. I don't know how fair or slight that is. But,
I think it was Caroline Meehan said that she often hear you got to go through Jan if you want to get something.
Well, she's the chair of the planning committee.
That's what I mean. She's not just any resident. She's not just any councillor. She's
the chair of the planning committee. Yeah.
So it's really important that perceptions matter on this case. And you know what? Whether she's done it for personal gain or not, or whatever, the perceptions matter. We have to have confidence in her, and I think that confidence has been shattered. Time for her to move on.
Okay, all right. That's not really the question. So, city council, you think is doing a horrible job. What about your own city councilor? Who's your city councilor?
City councilor is Jan Harder.
Oh,
and when I write to her, I never hear anything.
Never hear anything back. Okay.
And it's not like I write her every day and I hound her with stuff.
Okay. Well, she's the chair of the planning committee because basically the mayor put her there. So, what do you think of the job the mayor's doing?
Before before he was mayor or the last time he was mayor, it doesn't matter. This guy just spends, and if you have any sense of fiscal responsibility, I do not see how you can be a fan of Jim Watson.
All right. Okay, Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, he's not a happy taxpayer. 750-1310. We're keeping it local today. We're talking about local issues. This time tomorrow on Rogers Television, Rogers will be carrying the city council meeting, and it's a big one. This whole thing is coming up, the Jan Harder saga, and as well the $1 billion in electric buses. We also, but I just want, beyond those two individual issues, take a bigger picture view of the performance of this city council, okay? This time next year, they will begin the process of knocking on your door and asking for your vote. Please re-elect me. I've done such a wonderful job. Well, how did they do? We shouldn't really relitigate all these issues, but why not? This is the city council wanted nothing to do with the Shadow Laurier edition debate. Didn't even want to get involved, washed its hands of it, right? Oh, what did you hear all that? Well, we can't do anything about it. Just wanted to abdicate any responsibility that it had. We had a whole city up in arms about an iconic piece of Ottawa's landscape, right? The Shadow Laurier. And this city council, it couldn't wait to rid themselves of the file. With the exception of a few of the downtown councillors. Councillor Fleury kept that alive for the most part. On property development, we're giving away way too much money to property developers in brownfields, the grants that they get to clean up so-called environmentally contaminated lands. We have this unprecedented development boom in the city. Take a look across the skyline someday and just count the cranes that are dotting the skyline right now. We should do away with that whole brownfields program. If a developer wants to develop a piece of land in this city that may be contaminated because of some prior industrial use, make the developer clean that up as part of the development process. We are just giving away tens of millions of dollars every year. Just a few more examples, okay? Robert in Ottawa, you're on the City News. Robert.
Hello.
Yes, Robert. What do you think of the job the City Council is doing, sir?
I think they're doing a terrible job.
A terrible job.
Yeah, when I think of City Council, I think of tackle issues that are local.
Yes.
Never mind all these grandiose stuff that you just want to attach your name to and sound progressive or whatever.
Okay.
Fix the roads, fix the buildings, collect the trash on time or whatever is local and do that. In the area I live in, there was we have like a local newspaper that came out that said that they're planning on any new developments. I live in Alta Vista. Any new developments, the properties are going to be, you have to have at least minimum 2 or 3 per lot. Because they want these self-contained neighborhoods where people just live and never leave.
Yeah. Intensification, infill developments, right? So let's say somebody has, in Alta Vista, let's say there's a traditional three-bedroom bungalow, but it's hasn't been upgraded in 50 years. It was owned by the same family for a long time, and it's a tear-down, basically, right? So what's going to happen? Somebody's going to tear it down, and next thing you know, you're going to be living next to 4 units or 6 units.
Basically.
Right? And the city loves that because it helps it meet its intensification targets. But you don't love it because all of a sudden what used to be one house next door to you, now you got 6 houses and 6 cars and 6 families with kids and everything. Right? It's crazy.
They want these communities that you just don't go beyond them. I mean, shops and stuff like that. Hello, Amazon. Nobody goes to shops anymore.
Well.
Do they not look towards the future regarding certain things?
Yeah.
We need a car in this environment.
Right. I agree with you there.
You can ride a bike 4 or 5, 6 months out of the year. The rest of the time, I'm sorry, but you need a car or you need some other way to get around that doesn't involve slugging through the snow.
Okay. What about so in Alta Vista, Councillor Cloutier is your councillor. How do you think he's doing?
Well, I don't really hear too much about him in the news.
Right.
Outside of this report that came out of what they plan on doing with new developments, you barely hear boo about him. So I can't really give a glowing recommendation.
Well, I guess you'll hear from him at election time then.
That's basically it. Him and any other politician that represents.
What about the mayor? Do you think the mayor's doing a good job?
No, not really.
Not really.
Outside of the vaccine effort that they're doing, like I go to City Hall or wherever, and everything is run very, very well. Outside of that, no. I got my latest property tax bill, and what is this increase? It's just, it goes up all the time, and you don't see any noted improvement in anything outside of more bureaucracy or other.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. You raised some very important issues there. We can pick up on them right after the news. We're talking about City Council, big City Council meeting tomorrow, and the performance of your City Council on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 14 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 12. And here's what's making news this hour. The province reporting a daily COVID number and also some adjusted numbers stretching back months. The daily number of new cases today in Ontario, 296, 11 of those in Ottawa, 1 in Renfrew, none in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. Part of the data review, though, and cleanup led to 8 fewer cases in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. The province is also reporting 60 deaths, but 54 of those deaths are from previous months. We're expecting the Prime Minister to address benefits for Canadians during his regular media briefing on COVID. Our Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney says in addition to the update on travel restrictions slowly being lifted, a new benefit for Canadians is about to be unveiled. Ottawa police investigating the discovery of a 7th cat found dead in the West End. This happened about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They were called to the Woodruff-Merivale area for a dead animal. Police have not said if this cat's death is related to 6 others found in that general area. And the Ottawa Senators have extended the contract of Troy Mann. He is the head coach of the Belleville Senators. His contract has been extended now another 2 years. City News Time at 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Talking about City Council ahead of the big City Council meeting tomorrow. Our friends at Rogers Television will bring you the City Council meeting tomorrow. They always do that, of course, in its entirety. It's a big one with the future of Jan Harder's municipal political career on the line. And will she continue? Hard to see how it's possible. Will she continue as the planning chair for the city of Ottawa? But we're thinking kind of bigger picture here today, and I just want to know, generally speaking, are you pleased with the job that your city council is doing? Do you think your city council is doing a good job? Does it seem to be a city council that has a command of the situation, grasp of the files and the issues? Are you pleased with the job that your ward councillor is doing? Is your ward councillor doing a good job? Are you pleased with the job that Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is doing? He remains incredibly popular and would quite likely, my prediction would be, he would still win in a landslide. Now, 750-1310 is our call-in line. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. We have 3 lines available for you right now, so your wait won't be too long. I could pick any number of files, and I just think they're coming up short from, more often than not, this group of councillors. It's clear it doesn't have the foggiest idea what to do about garbage and recycling. But I guess on that score, when it comes to picking up the garbage, green bins, are we going to have another landfill? Should we have an incinerator? All of this other stuff. Yeah, this council, I guess, to be fair, it's not unlike the council before it and the council before that and the council before that. The solution has always been just put another colored bin at the curb, okay? Just put another bin at the curb. Bins, 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 everywhere bins. When it comes to light rail, I don't really want to relitigate light rail. Before the pandemic, every second show on for me was about light rail. Light rail and the launch of light rail in Ottawa was a failure. It was supposed to be a grand success. It was you have to admit it. It was a miserable failure, okay? Now, mercifully, it seems to be working better now that almost nobody's riding it. But come on, it was a disaster. And then the city council hired the same contractor, SNC Lavalin and Friends, right? Gave it a juicy contract to build the southern portion of the second phase of light rail and gave it a sweetheart maintenance deal. And there is still no money for phase 3. No money to build phase 3 out to Canada and out to Barrhaven. Look, I want you to think back to the 2010 municipal election in Ottawa. Jim Watson is victorious over Larry O'Brien. We had some new councillors elected, but a lot of faces that were around then in 2010, they're still around today, okay? Jan Harder, Eli L. Shantiri, Keith Egli, Diane Deans, Tim Tierney, Scott Moffat, Alan Hubley. Now think about your basic services 10 years later. And think about your property tax bill 10 years later. Is garbage collection any better than it was 10 years ago? Are the roads better than they were 10 years ago? Is the snow removal service any better than it was 10 years ago? Is social housing better than it was 10 years ago? Ottawa Community Housing? What's the repair backlog there? Can somebody get me a number? What's the wait time to get into a social housing unit for Ottawa Community Housing on the social housing wait list? 10 years ago, it was 10 years. Now it's 10 to 12 years. Would you say the Ottawa Police Service is better now? There's a lot of community tension about police, right? What about the homelessness situation? Has it improved? We declared a homeless emergency. Opioid addiction, as bad as ever. Overdoses, as bad as ever. Can modest income people even afford to live in Ottawa? Or is Ottawa just a city for the rich and the affluent now? You own a home, you're set. If you don't, you're out of luck. And I would remind you, is Councillor Harder the first to get into trouble among this group of councillors? No, I guess it's Councillor Harder's turn. Councillor Rick Shirelli is still a councillor. Councillor Tierney just fessed up to leaking things to a reporter. Now, I don't care about that story, really. What I care more about is that they said they were going to call the police to find the leaker, right? And punish the leaker. And Councillor Tierney voted to do that, even though he was the leaker. Diabolical, I tell you, trying to throw people off the scent like that. And this isn't the first time he had to apologize for being grade A stupid. Laura Dudas had to pay a fine. She overspent on her election campaign. She pleaded guilty, paid a fine. George DeRuse was driving, texting, and Zooming all at the same time. Am I missing anybody? Am I missing anybody? Right? 750-1310, Ruth in Canada. Good morning. You're on City News, Ruth.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Ruth.
Yeah, I want to tell you an incident a couple of years ago. I met the mayor personally at a shopping center.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I went up to him and I said, hi, Mayor. Listen, could you say, why are we not getting more low rental housing and that for the poorer people?
Yeah.
You know, instead of putting up all these retirement homes and they cost so much and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, it's not up to me. It's up to the developers. And I said, well, if it's up to the developers, I said, then why don't you ask the developers to do it? And he looked at me as though I had no right to ask him that whatsoever.
Okay.
And he walked away.
Right. Okay.
So,
but you got the impression that it was the mayor dancing to the developers' drum. Is that what you're saying?
100%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
right.
I believe under the table, it's SNC Lavalin and all these numbered companies.
Yeah.
Are in bed with everybody.
Well, you know, Jan Harder's in a whole heck of trouble now. I mean, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing. I know a bus driver friend of mine very personally, and he says that the mechanics tell the city the problems with the buses, that they should do this and that. And it comes down from the top official planners and all that. Oh, no, we can't spend that much money. You got to do this and you got to do that.
Sure,
and that's why they're having so much trouble with the breakdowns of the buses and the light rail system.
All right. So how do you think council is doing, in your opinion, the city council?
I think they don't give a rat's about the poor. All they care about is the rich and the famous. And the billionaires are taking us over if we don't stand our ground. Right. And nobody stands their ground anymore. So, like, we used to have our rallies, Rob. You know that. And,
oh, sure. I remember those rallies.
You know, that's what people should do. But, you know what? You got your kids on.
Well, there are still rallies. Everything. There were rallies a few weeks ago protesting against the Porsche dealership.
Yeah.
Right? So...
Well,
they still happen from time to time.
There's more important things in the Porsche dealership because that's all in the package.
All right. Okay, Ruth, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, okay, you too. 750-1310, Bernie in Barrhaven. Bernie.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there, Bernie.
Good. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I want to compliment you. You have an amazing memory. I can't believe how you remember all these things.
Well, I don't remember it. I have an amazing ability to press save on my computer, and I'm like, I'm going to save that one for later. Oh, I'll have to remember to save that. That's what I do, yeah. So what do you think of the job that this council is doing here?
You know, I know Jan Harder.
You do? Okay.
I've known her for many, many years.
Sure.
When she first started off and as a counselor. Now, what people have to realize is that the city of Nepean was small. It was run by Ben Franklin for the longest time.
Yep.
And it was a close group of people when counselors got together. They got together not only as, you know, working counselors, but they were friends. They worked together to accomplish a lot of things. I knew Jack Sterling, wonderful guy. He would go out of his way to help you. And a few times I went to him. I couldn't believe the amount of time he would spend with me explaining how to build stores. And I had to go on his knowledge. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when counselors get voted, a lot of times they get voted because of their personality to do things. A lot of people don't realize what their experience is. And it's these counselors that have to go to people that are experienced to get information so that they can make a wise
But there
decision.
are rules that have to be followed. I mean, can you I don't know Mr. Sterling. I only know Jan Harder in a professional capacity as a broadcaster, somebody who would interview her as a city councilor.
Very knowledgeable. Always there to help.
But can you hire her daughter, to work in your office and then have him as doing sole source work for your office?
Jan made it known that she was hired. Jan knew his daughter. Anyway, the family, the relationship with everybody.
They're tight,
close.
right? Yeah.
But it was something that, hey, the opportunity came up. She was looking for a job. Jan needed somebody.
Right.
And said, okay, you know what? Come on, work with me for a little while.
Okay.
But there was no political issues involved there. It was just a friendship thing that was done. And sometimes we make decisions on the spot. We don't look at the ramifications further on. But that was the extent of it. There was nothing inside that I'm aware of where the daughter took advantage of her position at Jan's office.
Right.
There was nothing there. Nothing has been proved.
Well, even the integrity commissioner says, there's no proof that anybody was out to enrich themselves. But you have to have, people want a better, I guess, degree of separation. There's already this perception here that developers are too powerful, that they have the councillors, they have the mayor at their beck and call. But
Rob, you got to understand, it's the developers that have the money, not the city.
Sure.
The city has to go to the developers and plead with them to do developments in certain areas.
Okay.
And the developers are there to make money. It's not a friendship thing. They're saying, okay, great, I know you, you know me. What's in it for me? And the city says, well, you know what? We need it. We need this for the future. Please consider developing in that area. And then they get involved in planning and certain planning. But then the councillors are not knowledgeable about planning. They have to go to the experienced people to get information. And it's the experienced people that direct them, put them in the right direction. Okay, getting back to Jim Watson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think he's doing a good job? Is he doing a good job, in your opinion?
The problem with Jim Watson is he didn't know. He went to people that he thought had the experience, and he had to make a decision based on what they gave him. Okay, what they gave him wasn't good, but he didn't know. But he had to make a decision. And when he makes a decision, he has to talk to the counselors and convince them that it is the right decision based on the information that he has.
Okay, all right.
But again, it's all information that's being funneled to these counselors to make decisions. Now, going to tell you a story.
Very quickly.
To the buses, okay? The electronic buses.
The electric buses, yeah.
Okay, it's a farce.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A friend of mine wrote a book on, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, sunspots and how the electronic environment changes in the world.
Yeah.
Buses would be wiped out in no time when the next cycle comes around. But there's a company called Ballard Systems. One of the people was on your
Ballard Power,
about hydrogen. Hydrogen is in car. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe in them. Invested a lot of money in the company. And I went to them and I said, hey, guys, what are you doing? And they said, well, our development at this point is large trucks, and it's working well. We're trying to apply it to miniaturized cars, but we need to do more research. I said, great. Have you gone to the government? Yes, I have.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
And what happened? They didn't want to get involved. But then China heard that we were...
all right. We're way off track, and we're way over time,
But
Bernie.
anyway, that's another
I guess
story.
It would be nice to. Did we even do any shopping around? Did we even do any shopping around for $1 billion on 450 vehicles for our transit fleet? $1 billion in
It's a bad decision.
$1 billion, Bernie, in 2 weeks? In 2 weeks from start to finish? You got to be kidding me. All right, we got to go. Thank you, Bernie. Yeah, be right back. 3 lines available, 750-1310, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, a record center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad say, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hintonburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, oh, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store's about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. Y'all come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make $1 gazillion. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say
and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yeah, I am that old guy yelling at the clouds. What of it? What of it? What of it? Ann, Ottawa. Ann, good morning.
Boy, I think Jan Harder owes that guy a fruit basket. Anyway, I was very sad to hear about Eric. Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, very sad.
Oh, I'm sorry if his family's listening. My condolences.
Yeah.
He had great calls.
Yes, great calls. Yes.
And it's a good thing the city isn't. I'm not filling out the report card for the city because it would be an F. I'm not impressed. Like when I saw my tax bill, I told you it went up $200 from last year.
Yeah.
So just imagine what other people, what their increases are going to be, and they're spending money.
But I guess what do you get for it?
Well, that's it.
Right.
You know, the best thing I
mean, you can ride light rail, right?
Well, like this whole thing, like no one's on the bus now. Oh yeah, let's spend billions of dollars on these stupid electrified buses or whatever.
Electric buses, yeah.
I mean, it's dumb. And like to see that and see no money for, and okay, I know they're not making the decision. It has to come from the federal government about giving the provinces money for long-term care. But when I see that, I'm like, okay, the liberal thing's coming out here. You know, Mr. Watson keeps saying, I'm not political, but, you know, with stuff like that, he is. And that's just, it's irresponsible. This should be a time now, with all the debt the city has because of this pandemic. They shouldn't be spending money that they're going to have to pay back. Like, we're going to have to pay back.
Right.
That's my money. And I don't want to see, and the roads are terrible. Like what Paul said, they're absolutely terrible. I was going down.
Okay. Who's your city councillor?
I think it's Diane Deans. Is she?
Oh, yeah, Diane Deans, would be your councillor. Yeah.
I mean, generally, like, she's kind of left-wing, but I agree with a lot of stuff that she's done. She's pretty good, actually.
Okay.
But, no, like, some of these lefties on the council, like, some of these decisions...
Oh, don't get me started about the lefties.
Climate emergency, like...
Climate emergency. They did do that. They declared a climate emergency.
Well, like, I'm sorry, no. An emergency is what we're dealing with now, where people are dying. That is an emergency.
All right, okay. All right. What about the mayor? How's the mayor doing?
Yeah, I mean, he was totally in bed with that decision to get the buses. Like, I can just imagine the cozy little chats going on, with the Trudeau government.
All right.
Who knows? I'm very cynical about that, and I don't agree with the way they're spending all this money.
Being cynical is bad for your health.
I know.
Okay? It's okay to be skeptical, but don't be cynical, okay?
Okay.
All right?
But
thank you.
Good. Thank you for the rant.
I gotta go. All right. Bye. Yeah. Yeah, cynicism is bad. Skepticism is okay, but try to avoid being cynical. I try to avoid. It's hard sometimes. It's hard. Cognitive behavioral therapy, I find, works well. Joanne, Orleans. Good morning, Joanne.
Morning, Rob. I think Michelle made all my points, including the fact that I'm so very, very sad to hear of the passing of Eric. He was such an awesome caller. He brought so much to the discussion. And, those kinds of callers are one in a million. And my deepest sympathy to his family.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. He'd be all into this one, too, today. He would.
I don't doubt it. I think that if they're going to hold Jan Harder, I guess I just have a bias in her favor.
Okay, what is that bias?
I find it hard to believe that she is corruptible. And so if they're... the perception of misconduct is as important as misconduct. So, if it looks bad, you should avoid it.
Yeah.
But I want the same standard for those who are, in my opinion, in bed with the environmental movement. I don't think that they have the taxpayer and the Ottawa citizen in mind when they declare their climate emergencies, or when they're anti-parking because they're anti-car, or they're moving in those directions. And how will we hold those councillors to account when they are being influenced by the environmentalists in our area? So if we're going to hold Jan Harder to account to that standard, we have to find a way to hold Sean Menard and Catherine McKenna to those standards. And as far as our mayor, there are things I love in his decisions. Lansdowne Park is one of them. What a waste of land and it was, and how beautiful it is now. And he has had the courage to move forward on some very controversial decisions.
Okay.
On the other hand, and I also wonder how left our council would be if he wasn't there. Sometimes I picture him.
He kind of keeps them in check. He kind of keeps them in check.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Left to their own devices, I can't imagine where we'd be. But otherwise, I do find, I do disagree with some things.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. Last call. One more. We got time for. We have 90 seconds. That's it. Francis in Hunt Club. Francis.
Hi, Rob.
How do you think your city council is doing, Francis?
Well, I don't think they're doing very good.
You don't? Okay.
Well, they're all very experienced politicians, at least most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And politicians know perception is 99%.
Yep.
And if you step over that line, you're not going to make it into council next time.
Okay. Do you think that's what Jan Harder did here? She crossed the line here?
She's not a novice.
No. She's certainly not. No.
And that's all. If she's that stupid to make that kind of a simple mistake, what else does she do?
Okay. All right.
So I'm not happy.
Not happy.
But I was happy about Professor Ian Lee today.
Yeah.
I think that guy is
wired for sound, isn't he? He is. All you do is wind that guy up and let him go. And
I think he's a giant. I do.
A giant. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you for all your calls. Thank you for all your calls. It's going to be a heck of a city council meeting tomorrow. Don't forget, it will be on Rogers Television starting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It is 11 o'clock. Well, 2 minutes before 11 o'clock, Andrew will have the news, and then we'll be right back to the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, June 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 14 degrees. It's 12 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province reporting its daily COVID numbers, but also some adjusted numbers, and this stretches back months. Daily number of new cases today, 296. 11 of those are in Ottawa, 1 in Renfrew, none in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. But part of this data review and cleanup led to 8 fewer cases being reported in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Now, the province also reporting 60 more deaths today, but it says 54 of those deaths are from previous months. The case count today comes from just under 16,800 tests that were completed. The positive rate, 1.6%. In just a matter of minutes, the Prime Minister expected to give another COVID update to the nation. New quarantine exemptions will be in the spotlight. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
When the Prime Minister speaks, we're expecting him to highlight the border changes his government announced yesterday, which will allow, after July 5th, fully vaccinated Canadians, permanent residents, and foreign nationals deemed essential travelers to enter the country without having to quarantine. But the changes are only for quarantine measures, and there's no word at all yet on when non-essential travel like tourism can resume. The opposition, business, and travel groups have been calling for a clear and comprehensive reopening plan, but the government hasn't presented one yet. I'm told vaccines are also on the agenda, with the Prime Minister giving an update on delivery numbers. And he'll talk about a new benefit for Canadians. This morning, the Minister for Disability Inclusion introduced a bill called the Act to Reduce Poverty and to Support the Financial Security of Persons with Disabilities by establishing the Canada Disability Benefit, although we're still waiting for details on that legislation. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:02. And now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Quite a bit of cloud for most areas, but we'll get into a bit of clearing as the day wears on. The wind will settle down. It was quite mild early this morning, 19, but it's a cooler day overall. We can feel that noticeably cooler. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about 17. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 8 degrees. That's it. So a cool morning on Wednesday, but lots of sunshine, 23. For today, already reached the high, 19.
And right now in Ottawa, 14. In Smiths Falls, 12 degrees. Military Ombudsman Greg Lick is demanding the federal government immediately grant his office true independence and oversight powers over the Canadian Armed Forces. Lick says the internal mechanisms that were meant to support those who have suffered misconduct have failed to ensure fair outcomes.
They are not just broken, they have collapsed entirely under their own weight. Most of these wounds in the system are self-inflicted, with documented meddling of Canadian Armed Forces members and civilian leadership in positions of power in individual cases, resulting in directed and often malicious cases of reprisal.
Lick says there has been enough study and review, and that if independent oversight is not established now, service members will continue to suffer. City News Time, 11:04. The 7th cat has been found dead in the west end of the city. Ottawa police called to the Woodruff-Knoxdale area for a dead cat yesterday afternoon around 3. Now, 6 cats have been found in that general area since the beginning of the month. This makes 7 now. Police have said they are looking into this suspicious incident, but have not said if it's connected to the other 6 dead cats in that area. Ottawa Senators have extended the contract of Troy Mann, the head coach of the Belleville Senators. Contract extended another 2 years. In a release, the club says since hiring Mann 3 years ago, they have brought in someone with a strong track record in development of players. Senators GM Pierre Dorion says Troy has played a vital role in development and preparation of countless players. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Still ahead in this hour of the program, the leader of the official opposition, Erin O'Toole, is scheduled to join us at 11:45 this morning here on the Rob Snow Show. Now, Robert Benzie is the bureau chief, Queen's Park bureau chief for the Toronto Star. Just moments ago, the Toronto Star posted a story about Premier Ford, and I'll read a couple of lines for it. You can go read it for yourself at thestar.com. Quote, "A man wielding a blood-splattered butcher's knife has been arrested outside Premier Doug Ford's Etobicoke home. Alarmed neighbors told the Toronto Star they spotted a visibly upset man emerge from a car that screeched to a halt at Ford's home on Monday. At 7:30 p.m., brandishing a bloody knife, the man yelled for several minutes outside the Premier's front door. Ivana Yelich, Ford's executive director of media relations, confirmed the incident Tuesday at the home where Ford resides with his wife and 2 of his 4 adult daughters. The Premier thanked officers for quick action and bravery, which resulted in no harm to anyone involved in the incident. Ford Street has been the scene of numerous protests during the pandemic from demonstrators opposed to lockdowns designed to curb the spread of COVID-19. So that is a story that is just breaking right now. We're gathering more details as we speak on that one. Meantime, yesterday, House of Commons, an incredible scene, really, with Ian Stewart. Mr. Stewart is the president of the Public Health Agency of Canada, and he was admonished by the Speaker. A verbal flogging, I guess you could call it, the likes of which we have not seen in this country in more than 100 years. I don't know if Tom Clancy could do this story up any better. The story goes something like this. 2 government scientists fired from a government lab in Winnipeg. Security clearances removed. Allegations and reports deadly viruses were sent to the Wuhan Institute in China. How's that for a story? Now, the opposition parties have been trying to find out the totality of what happened here, but the Liberals are not cooperating. They say they can't because of national security concerns. National security concerns. So with that, we welcome to the show Associate Professor of International Relations, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University, Professor Stephanie Carvin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you. You have a new book, Stand on Guard, Reassessing Threats to Canada's National Security. Congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's useful for the talk we're about to have today. Because,
absolutely.
Man, there's, as you say, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, this could be a chapter.
Actually, it could.
Right. Okay, what could the threat to Canada's national security be in this instance?
It's hard to say specifically because, as you mentioned, there's a lot we don't yet know about this case. There's been no criminal charges. There may be a national security investigation, and certainly it seems that, you know, our intelligence agencies were involved in this case, perhaps raising concerns, as has been reported in the Globe and Mail, that, you know, these the two scientists that have been removed from the lab and their research assistants may have been involved in threats to the security of Canada. So what could that have been? There's been a lot of speculation that this could have been about intellectual property, that, you know, the National Microbiology Lab develops a lot of technology around some of the worst viruses that, you know, kind of plague humanity, including the Ebola virus, which is, I believe, one of the viruses that was actually sent to the lab. And so as Canada, you know, taxpayers fund research into countering these threats, this information may have been sent to China or provided to China in ways that would violate our protocols. A second concern would be something surrounding the 1,000 Talents program, which is where China has been doing what it can to recruit scientists who are working on cutting-edge technologies and to try to bring them to China to, again, give them that intellectual property or to share knowledge in ways that would be detrimental to the Canadian interests. So there's a number of things here that you do worry about. There could have been clandestine foreign influence activities and trying to convince, you know, individuals to provide information to China. There may have been espionage. We're not sure, but none of this is good.
No, none of it is good. And there have long been concerns that China is seeking to infiltrate establishments in the in Canada, and that one of them would be government institutions or universities doing research. So there's that concern too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen a lot of this recently, again, reported about, you know, technology that is being developed at Canadian universities. University of Alberta has been in the news a lot about this lately. Right. That, you know, and that there's these joint partnerships or joint ventures that, you know, again, taxpayer-funded research with some investment from China in certain cases is being basically sent to China, developed there commercially, and then, you know, being sold back to Canada, the Canadians who've already paid for it. Mm-hmm. But also there's deeper concerns as well that, you know, when this technology is transferred in illicit ways, that not only is that bad for the Canadian economy and Canadian taxpayers, but also the fact that sometimes this technology can be used in ways that further Chinese state ends, in particular, engaging, you know, using technology to survey certain populations like the Uyghur population in Xinjiang, the Tibetan population. And so, you know, is Canadian technology being stolen and then or sold in these kind of illicit ways and then being used to actually commit human rights abuses? I think that's a second layer here. Doesn't necessarily relate to the lab, but it is a concern with regards to these kind of technology deals or illicit transfers.
So again, I mean, the salacious highlights of the story: 2 scientists working at a government lab in Winnipeg, fired in January, security clearances revoked, deadly pathogens potentially sent to China, security review by the RCMP worried about security breaches, security clearances revoked on the advice of CSIS, our intelligence agency, Wuhan Institute of China. So it's tailor-made for a political scandal, right? So how do you resolve that? How do you resolve that? Because certainly the opposition is within its right to know what the heck is going on, and Canadians would want to know. They hear these stories, what's going on. So how do you find out what's going on without spilling the beans about what was going on?
Okay, I've been tearing my hair about this for like a month. Because, you know, so the Conservatives are right, like in that their line of questioning is correct. Like they're absolutely right in asking, you know, how did this happen? Who was in charge? Why were these clearances granted? Why did the government not know that this was happening? All of these questions are correct. However, the concern that I have is, as you say, CSIS, RCMP are involved, and they have access to some extremely highly classified information. And that information may not be Canadian. That information may actually have come from one of our allies. Right. We know that the United States is worried about this issue with regards to technology transfers to China. So they're monitoring this kind of stuff. They may have, you know, tapped someone on the shoulder and said, hey, Canada, have you looked to see what's happening here? Canadian authorities may have then looked into it and realized that, okay, yeah, we have a problem, and then acted. So my concern here is that, you know, while I agree that the Conservatives should ask these questions, the fact that they want access to this, all the classified information, seems to me deeply concerning because it could give away sources and methods. It could give away intelligence that's not Canadian. So we're giving away and making public allied information to individuals, even if it's just individuals on the committee. These guys have never looked at intelligence before. They have no intelligence background. I'm really concerned that, you know, just dumping this information without any context or understanding of how national security works threatens sources, threatens methods, and threatens Canada's reputation with our allies.
But we do have a select national security committee, right?
Yeah, but their argument is that, okay, and this is where we get super nerdy, and I don't want to bore your audience, but they're saying, you know, this is a committee that is made up of parliamentarians. It's not a parliamentary committee. So in giving the information to this other committee, which is called NZCOP, or the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, and I can feel your audience falling asleep when I say that, is that basically that it's not really handing the documents over to Parliament. And this is the problem. We don't have a parliamentary committee with security clearance that can deal with this. So the government's saying, look, we can give it to this committee that is cleared and understands the intelligence, it can deal with it and has Conservative members on it. But you know, the members on that committee, the Canada-China committee, are saying, no, that's not good enough. That's not a parliamentary committee. We think Justin Trudeau is going to censor whatever report comes out of this, and this is just going to be buried. So we have this kind of standoff between, and no one's behaving well in all this, by the way. Okay. So I'm really frustrated.
Well, let me ask you, though, Professor, what do you think about what happened to Ian Stewart yesterday? It hasn't happened in more than they call it being called to the bar in the House of Commons and getting a verbal dressing down in the House. Hasn't happened in more than a century, and he insists, I can't release the documents. I know you would love to see these. I can't release them. Do you think he's right? Is he doing the right thing there?
Well, he's definitely falling on his sword.
He is, yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of Richard Fadden. What happened to Richard Fadden when he said, hey, there's Chinese espionage in Canada, and then he was taken to task by Parliament. Parliament hadn't seen the documents. They were very upset. And they said, you know, this is, you know, racism and this is bad. And then so he was not admonished formally in the same kind of way, called to the bar or whatever it is by Parliament, but he was basically, you know, admonished for something, you know, that he couldn't give to Parliament because he knew that he would be giving away sources and methods, and there was, you know, other investigations that could be compromised if he talked in an unclassified environment. So this happened to Dick Fadden, I think, back in 2010, 2011. So it reminds me of that. And later on, the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians actually kind of exonerated him, and they said, yeah, no, this stuff is really happening. And he couldn't give up the information at the time. So to me, I feel bad. I think he's in a similar position. I do think, you know, if the Liberals weren't perhaps misbehaving as much as they are in other committees, there'd be more good faith and more goodwill in terms of finding a solution. But, you know, the Conservatives are saying that this is just, you know, that this committee is unacceptable, that it's not, accountable to Parliament, that it's just accountable to Justin Trudeau, which is not really the case. It's a very, what ends up happening is that the national security agencies themselves censor the information that they're worried about. It goes through the Prime Minister's office and then comes back out. So, they're saying that it's basically prime ministerial censorship, which it's not really. But, again, that's another boring issue. But I think that, ideally, this is why we can't have nice things. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Is that there's not a sophisticated intelligence culture in Parliament. And as a result of this, we're having this fight, which basically means that rather than the Canada-China Committee focusing on, problems with the relationship with China, we're having this fight about parliamentary powers, which is more grandstanding and not at all necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Carvin.
Sorry about the nerdiness.
No, that's not. It's okay. It's a little wonky. Thank you again.
Wonky.
Yep, from
Thank
Carleton
you.
University. And again, her new book, Stand on Guard, Reassessing Threats to Canada's National Security. We're right back. Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery is rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world. And we source it through, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to buy, Cuddy turkey breast, San Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands, the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In a new report published by the C.D. Howe Institute, a former deputy governor of the Bank of Canada is warning our central bank against mission creep. And we're pleased to be joined this morning by John Murray, senior fellow at the C.D. Howe Institute and a former deputy governor of the Bank of Canada. Good morning, Mr. Murray.
Good morning, Rob.
Very nice to hear from you. What is the mission of... I'm sorry, sir. What is the mission of the Bank of Canada?
Well, it has 2 or 3 primary missions, but with regard to monetary policy, its primary mission is to achieve and maintain what they call low, stable, and predictable inflation. And currently it's based on something called an inflation target, in which you aim for an inflation rate of around 2% a year. They also have responsibility, the Bank of Canada, a shared responsibility for maintaining financial stability in markets, and as well providing a currency that we're all familiar with, banknotes that are reliable and can be used without concern.
Sure. And that's kind of the third leg of it, but who knows where that is going with cryptocurrencies now, and central banks talking about cryptocurrencies. But that's a conversation for another day. Conversation for another day. But yes, core inflation, and everyone remembers the central banks and their fight against inflation back in the day with, say, people like John Crow and in the United States, Paul Volcker. But and that has very much been the mission for the Bank of Canada, maintaining stable inflation. So now you're cautioning, though, against so-called mission creep, getting out of these, getting away from these traditional strengths of the central bank. Why? What has you concerned there?
2 or 3 things. First, the existing framework has been amazingly successful in providing this low, stable, predictable inflation rate through time, and you wouldn't want to see anything that might subvert that or impair it. As well, some of the suggestions that have been put forward, while they're commendable, indeed incredibly important on their own, run the risk of hampering monetary policy. And moreover, I am suggesting that monetary policy is not a very efficient means of tackling them, that policymakers have other tools at their disposal that would be far more efficient and effective in this regard. So on the one hand, monetary policy, not a very promising tool in that respect. As well, you sort of threaten to distract from its ability to deliver on its primary, or as you suggested, core responsibility, but you also sort of distract attention from those whose responsibility for these other things really lie, and the application of their tools. Some of these suggestions, for example, just to give you an idea, include promoting a greener economy, fighting income inequality, resisting housing price increases, promoting financial stability more generally. Now, these are all great and worthy objectives, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not suggesting anything to the contrary. The issue is really, Rob, just one of assigning the right tool to the right target and keeping monetary policy as focused and as simple as possible. I guess I'd add, just as a footnote to this, I'm not suggesting that as the bank and the government run up to the renewal of the inflation targeting framework, which is due later this year, that they don't examine all feasible and promising alternatives. I'm just suggesting that set of possible changes is narrower than some people have indicated, and really need to be concentrated on the things that would help the bank fulfill its existing responsibilities in a more efficient and effective way without broadening that list of responsibilities too widely.
Do you think the central bank's monetary policy is independent enough from the politics of the day? Why don't we close on that? Sure.
Yes, I do. And
you
that's
do.
Such an important consideration, Rob. And one of the risks involved in broadening the mandate of monetary policy is that it may sort of at the margin impede or imperil that independence, which is so important for the successful conduct of monetary policy.
Thank you so much. A great pleasure, sir.
It's a welcome.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
That is John Murray, a former deputy governor of the Bank of Canada. This is the Rob Snow Show. So coming up right after the news at 11:30, one of our guests, we are scheduled to be joined by the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Erin O'Toole, scheduled to be on our show at 11:45. And just before that, yes, the latest on our fight against COVID-19 with Dr. Paul Roumeliotis. He is the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. That's coming up right after the 11:30 news. Just ahead, this is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, the 22nd of June. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, we've got cloudy skies, a little breezy, 14 degrees. Smiths Falls, partly cloudy, and 14. Here's what's making news this hour. Provincial health officials say today's COVID-19 numbers are a bit skewed due to a data cleanup. There are 296 cases in today's report, but 80 of those are from Toronto in a review of cases, and they're from previous dates. There are 60 deaths in today's report due to COVID-19, but 54 of those are also from previous dates. Now, locally, the province is reporting 11 new cases in Ottawa, has removed 8 cases from Eastern Ontario's case totals, and reports 1 new case of COVID-19 in Renfrew County. The Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit is reporting no new cases. Happening now north of Manotick Station, Ottawa police have temporarily closed a section of Rideau Road. This is north of Emerald Lakes Golf Club near Bowesville Road. Ottawa paramedics sharing on Twitter they are on the scene of a medical emergency, and Orange Air Ambulance is on the scene as well. A section of Rideau Road is closed between Bowesville Road and Downey Road. There's no details about the medical emergency, but a section of Rideau Road is closed. Stay with City News as we keep you updated on this story. Now, this story is full of bull. Lanark OPP are looking for the owner of an ornery Highland bull southwest of Perth. OPP sharing on Twitter that officers found, quote, Highland bull, not cooperative, well-fed, horns very pointy. The animal's been secured at a property in the Scotchline Road and Kelford Drive area. If you're missing a bull, and you should really notice that, give Lanark OPP a call. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Dr. Paul Roumeliotis is with us, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, Rob.
How is the battle against COVID-19 in your health unit today?
Going well. We have minimal number of cases, and in fact, we're full speed ahead with our vaccines.
Okay. In fact, a number of callers to my program have left Ottawa. They've gone to places like Castleman and Cornwall to get shots. In other words, they've left the Ottawa Public Health Unit and they've traveled to your unit in order to get vaccinated. How do you feel about that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that because a similar number for living in our area go to Ottawa and other areas. So this is an Ontario program. So as long as we get the needles in people's arms, I have no problem with that. Okay. It's all a wash. We looked at the data. We're very much aware if for some reason we run out of vaccine, we're going to get more vaccine. So this is not taking away from anybody, from anybody's vaccine. So not to worry.
What is the latest on the supply of the vaccine?
The supply looks very good. Moderna is actually increased a lot, more than we expected. The problem is that Pfizer will deliver the previously allocated vaccine, but instead of Monday this week, it'll come on Wednesday. It'll come tomorrow. So we're just having to pivot a bit this week for our clinics. Moving forward, there will be a bit of a decreased supply of Pfizer that will be made up at the end of July. So overall, our numbers will be the same. It's just the when it will be delivered to us. And Moderna, we've got a couple of deliveries, so we have ample vaccine. We had to do a bit of a pivot and offer Moderna to most people because of that. And we're reserving our Pfizer for this week because of the delay for adolescents 12 to 17, because that's the only vaccine that is Health Canada recommended for that age group.
What is your advice to people who say, well, doctor, I had Pfizer. I'm not, for my first dose, I'm not crazy about mixing and matching doses. If I had Pfizer, I want to stick to Pfizer.
Sure.
What do you say to them?
Well, I say that now we have a lot of evidence that points to the fact that these have the same protection. If you look at 6 months down the line, they've done the tests and the protection is the same, very high. They are actually the same type of vaccine. They use the same mechanism. They're both mRNA vaccines. The only difference is that they're made by two different companies. And I can also tell people that it's not uncommon that we intermix vaccines. For example, with flu vaccines, every year we have different ones. When we have different vaccines for childhood vaccinations, we vary them depending on the company, depending on availability. So this is not new to us. It's just that we've made this change because now we have the evidence to support us in terms of some of the data that seems to indicate that, and to no surprise, that because these vaccines are made the same way and they work the same way, that they can be interchangeable.
Okay. It's almost like the more we know, the more worried we become.
I know.
Like a victim of knowledge,
it doesn't help when we change a lot. I do agree because initially we said they're not interchangeable because we hadn't had the experience. But the more we know, the more we can adapt and learn. And the bottom line is that I would not hesitate getting a second dose, whichever is offered to me, because I want to get those second dose numbers up as quickly as possible. Because I've said time and time again, this is our key to going back to normalcy.
Yeah. You're not fully vaccinated yet?
Oh, I am.
You are? Okay, you are. Okay.
I am.
What did you get?
I got Pfizer.
Twice. Okay.
Twice.
All right.
Because we had it available, but I would not have hesitated to get Moderna.
Okay. Now, I would like to ask you as well, are you running into people who are vaccine shopping or what have you?
Actually, no. Over the weekend we had a couple of clinics going where a couple of thousand people were seen. 25 actually made a fuss, did not want to get Moderna, and they're going to come back for Pfizer in the future. And yesterday it was 7, and today so far it's fine.
That must drive you crazy when people there's
well,
a dose
what
right
do we
there.
do? They do have a right to. They do have a right to decide, but we try to. It's their decision, but we try to. Give them the evidence and confidence that it's a good idea to get it in there and not delay. Why delay? Because the quicker you delay, the quicker you'll be able to. Go back to some of the things that we're going to be we've missed for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
So,
what do you tell people who had AstraZeneca and wonder if they had a substandard vaccine? And
I don't think it's a question of a substandard vaccine. I think it's a question of a different vaccine. And because of availability, we're now pivoting to be able to give a second dose of an mRNA. Studies again have shown that if you do those mixings, which are different, this one is different vaccine, as you know, it's a protein vaccine, and so we do now that if you do intermix them, the product, in other words, your immunity will be just as high, actually a bit higher as compared to just having two AstraZeneca doses. So I tell them not to worry as well. Again, bottom line is get your second dose because, again, it's going to be something that we're all going to be looking at in terms of the numbers so we can have that herd immunity. But also importantly, we know that the second dose, whichever one it is, will prevent the Delta variant as well. The first dose prevents about 30 to 40%, but you need the second dose to get that high protection.
Yeah. Is the Delta variant, has it been detected in your health unit?
We had one case several weeks ago. We were able to successfully limit it to one individual. We did the contact tracing. So far, all of the positives that we've had, which are very low, have not been Delta variant.
Have not been Delta variant?
No, have not in our area anymore. It was just one, I would say about a month ago.
About a month ago, okay, because it's highly contagious. So if you would think if it was in Toronto, it would be in Ottawa, and it would be in Cornwall or Oxbury or something.
Well, that's what we're worried about, and that's why I'm being very careful to tell people and cautious, saying, look, you need to. I know we're vaccinating a lot of people. We're still not up there in terms of the 2 doses. We still need to have the measures in place. Although we're opening a bit, respect the social distancing, respect the masking as we slowly ramp up our vaccines. And then slowly decrease the number of variants. Because the more vaccines we have, the more people are protected, the less that the COVID itself, the original one, and the variants will have a chance to circulate. That's the whole premise of trying to vaccinate many people.
Sure. Speaking of reopening, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business thinks maybe we don't need a 3-phase reopening. Maybe we can just go from phase 1 to phase 3. What would you think of that? We just fully reopen.
I think that we should err on the side of caution. I empathize with retailers. They've lost a lot of business, but I can tell you that it'll be catastrophic if we have to go back and reclose them. So I'd rather do it progressively moving forward, buy us a bit more time to be able to vaccinate more people and have that confidence and I think the ability to go just move forward and not look back. I don't want to be in the position where we have to look back or have a fourth wave.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Nice to hear from you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Dr. Paul Roumeliotis is the medical officer of health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. It is 11:40 and still ahead on our program. Erin O'Toole, he is the leader of the opposition, the leader of Canada's Conservative Party. Just before that, the Prime Minister is taking reporters' questions right now. He is at Rideau Cottage right now. This has been more partisan than usual from the Prime Minister.
de vérifier les antécédents COVID et la vaccination. Mais c'est quelque chose sur lequel on est en train de pencher, mais on n'était pas prêt à trancher, à prendre une décision finale là-dessus pour l'annonce de hier. Mais on est en train, évidemment, de continuer à suivre la science et d'écouter les recommandations de nos experts. There is an issue that some jurisdictions around the world, including Quebec, are talking about that someone who has had COVID and only gets 1 dose of a vaccine could have a sufficient level of protection. As always, as a country, we make our decisions based on the best science, the best evidence, the best data available. And I know that our experts are leaning in on exactly that question to try and make a determination if indeed that's something we can be confident in as we move forward. So we will continue to work with jurisdictions that are doing that. We will continue to look at ways of getting life back to normal in a way that is safe and effective for everyone. But we were not ready to make that call yesterday for the announcement. So it's something we're going to look at carefully, and hopefully we'll have a better answer for people in the coming weeks as we look to making more announcements.
Merci. Opérateur, prochaine question téléphone.
The next question is from Marika Walsh from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Prime Minister. I'm following up on a story from my colleagues earlier this week on your caucus spending nearly $200,000 in taxpayer-funded spending to the same companies, Data Sciences and NGP Band, that work for your re-election campaigns. Part of this is from your with your childhood friend Tom Pitfield, and I'm wondering if you can explain to Canadians why this taxpayer-funded spending is justified.
As you know, MPs do important work in responding to constituency concerns, and this database is used exclusively for dealing with constituency issues. And I can also assure you that all rules have been followed in both the contract and the way it's used.
And how does this fit with your open and accountable government policy, where you wrote that members of your government, quote, must uphold the highest standards of honesty and impartiality, and both the performance of your official duties and the arrangement of your private affairs should bear the closest public scrutiny? How does this bear public scrutiny when the same organizations are working for the Liberal Party as for taxpayer-funded offices?
MPs do really important work serving their constituents in a nonpartisan way, and the database they use to manage that is separate from any political databases, and every step of the way we have followed all the rules in place that are designed to make sure that the functioning of Parliament is done in a way that is fair.
Merci. Opérateur, on va prendre une dernière question au téléphone.
One last question over the phone, operator.
De Catherine Lévesque, la presse canadienne.
Catherine Lévesque from the Presse Canadienne, Canadian Press.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau.
Yes, Mr. Trudeau.
On est à quelques heures de la fin des travaux parlementaires.
We're a few hours away from the end of the parliamentary session.
Ou si vous étiez satisfait du bilan législatif que vous laissez aux Canadiens à ce moment-ci.
Je pense qu'on reconnaît qu'on a passé une année extrêmement difficile pour tout le monde. Le Parlement a pu...
Quite enough. That's the Prime Minister at Rideau Cottage. It's 11:44. Rob Snow Show on City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of... it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from 150 square foot space on St. Patrick's Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you know, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got 10 other people working for you, you're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, I mean, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, you know, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, you know, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, you know, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down, and so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, you know, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products. and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing, and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
Of community opinion.
The Robb Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So much to discuss this morning with the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Erin O'Toole. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you. I want to begin with some developing news, and Gary Lick is the military ombudsman for the Canadian Armed Forces. He's going to be on my program tomorrow morning. By the way, we've just confirmed that 9:15. CBC reports that he has accused the Defense Minister's office, so Mr. Sajjan's office, of trying to, quote, exert control over investigations and ignoring recommendations for change, talking about sexual misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces. And he is calling for the Ombudsman's office to be made entirely independent, reporting to Parliament and not to the Minister's office. What is your reaction?
I agree with him on both the need for the independence of the office, is something I've supported for many years, and I agree with him of Mr. Sajjan's continued control and cover-up over sexual misconduct allegations. In fact, Mr. Sajjan fired the last ombudsman when he brought forward a complaint from a woman serving her country. That's why we had a vote actually condemning Minister Sajjan last week, probably the first time in a century that's happened in Parliament. And it's a pattern with him: cover up, not accountable, misleading people. It's really shameful. And as a veteran, I've hated seeing the reputation of Canadian Armed Forces falling apart. No accountability, no serious approach to change the culture and show a sustained commitment to making the workplace one where women can serve their country with respect and free from harassment. So it will be a priority for me, Rob.
Mr. Walburn was the previous ombudsman. He spoke of a toxic atmosphere in his working environment, particularly after he brought his concerns to the minister at the time, as I recall. So.
Yeah, he was essentially fired, ostracized, toxic environment. And then this Mr. Lick, the new ombudsman, has said the sexual misconduct circumstances and issues over the last few years have gone from a crisis to a tragedy. And trust has been eroded in large part because of that control, because of Minister Sajjan's own personal conduct. And remember, the Prime Minister claims he didn't know anything about these allegations for 3 years, but his Chief of Staff did, the Clerk of the Privy Council, the Minister. It's just like the SNC Lavalin. Everyone knew, but when you suggest the Prime Minister's conduct is falling short, no, he's apart from that. You know, he's never responsible, never accountable. I think Canadians are tired of this. It's a government that goes from one corruption scandal, one cover-up to another, and I'm going to be offering a very different approach, ethical, competent government that's ready to tackle the challenges post-COVID.
Bill C-10 passed early this morning through the House of Commons. This is the Internet Regulation Bill. Conservatives oppose it. What is the future of this legislation, in your opinion, Mr. O'Toole? What happens now? Why should Canadians be worried?
Yeah, I was there at 1:30. We tried to get an amendment passed to put protections for people's social media back in. The Liberals and their partners on the left, the NDP and the Bloc, shot down our protection, which Rob just would have said, we don't want the CRTC regulating what people post on their Facebook or YouTube or other things. The very fact that Liberals think they can do this, start controlling what people say, what people think, that should really trouble people. The Internet social media is the new public square for freedom of expression. It should remain that way. So all we've said is we can balance the playing field between the American web giants and Canadian content creators without eroding people's free speech rights. I think it's crazy to think that Mr. Trudeau thinks he has a mandate from the people to do this. No one is signing up for this. They want a level playing field, but they don't want government control.
How would you, just give me some ideas, how would you rein in web giants? They really do have almost a monopoly on the advertising market, and they don't have great reputations when it comes to things like controlling the content on their platforms, hate content and this sort of stuff, and being vulnerable to disinformation campaigns and interfering in elections and these kinds of things from Canada's adversaries. So how do you bring the web giants to rest a little bit here, Mr. O'Toole? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, and we've been advocating some of this, Rob, with some of the exploitation of children and sexual revenge type imagery. We've been advocating on that with the MindGeek porn hub study led by conservatives. We've said we're even willing to re-examine some of our past positions on where GST and other things apply so that there can be a fairer approach between streaming services that are Canadian and versus American, how much content goes into what is shown in Canada. All of that can be done. Those are economic policies. Those are tax policies. That's public safety policies. You can do that without saying we want bureaucrats of the CRTC scrolling through your comments online. That's where we draw the line. And so we want to see Canadian talent, Canadian artists have more opportunity to compete and not everything controlled by two or three Silicon Valley giants. But we cannot change the fundamental sort of net neutrality, open dialogue we see on the web. We can control hate speech because we do have laws in Canada on that. But really, I don't think they want bureaucrats choosing which speech and other things will be promoted and supported and which will not be. That's what Canadians haven't really had a chance to see what the risks are with C10, which is why we voted against it, which is why I've said I'd revoke these measures as Prime Minister.
Okay. Ian Stewart leads the Public Health Agency of Canada, and he was admonished by the House of Commons yesterday, officially, something that hasn't happened in more than a century. Why was that necessary? Why was that necessary?
I feel bad the government is sullying the reputation of lifelong bureaucrats and people that worked in the civil service because they're insisting on covering up a scandal related to the Winnipeg laboratory. Why the Trudeau government ever promoted military and science cooperation with scientists tied to the Chinese military at a time they have the two Michaels in prison, at a time there's a genocide against the Uyghurs, the situation in Hong Kong. It just shows how completely out of touch the Trudeau government is when it comes to China. So this civil servant had to appear to basically say that he's not allowed to show the documents because the Liberal government won't allow him. And remember, back in the Afghanistan war, we had this matter looked at, and Parliament can pass laws and is able to look at all documents. We can protect secrecy, Rob, but this is another example. In the last few weeks of this parliamentary session, Mr. Trudeau is showing with these 100-year events, this is one of the most corrupt and secretive governments in Canadian history. And I know it's a pandemic, people aren't following it, but this is really concerning, and it shows there needs to be a change. Canadians deserve transparency and ethical government.
Yeah. So the House is supposed to rise tomorrow, is that right? Tomorrow's supposed to be the last day? I have the calendar.
We're down to the final stretch,
final stretch.
Tomorrow will be the last day to hold the PM.
The Prime Minister this morning, he's doing his Rideau Cottage thing. He accused your party of obstructing the government's agenda, of obstructing important pieces of legislation that would help Canadians. How do you respond to that?
I almost feel like laughing. It's quite comical. This is the guy who shut down Parliament rather than show some documents on the WE scandal. All of these bills they're bringing forward, we voted at 1:30 in the morning on C10, Rob. These are all things that he could have brought forward weeks and months ago. Why did they change C10 at the last minute? They don't actually have a very busy agenda. This budget, C30, is their first budget in 2 years. Like, this is a lazy government on top of not managing their affairs. He's saving a few bills at the end to make this claim that the Tories are holding things up because he's posturing for a summer election. It will always be about what's good for Justin Trudeau's political skin and the well-being of the lobbyists and the insiders that support him. We're here asking the questions about free speech, about accountability, about ethics, and I hope people see the contrast. There can be more corruption and more Canada being behind everyone else on vaccines, on economic reopen, or you can choose the Conservatives with a new leader who's experienced and ready to go.
I want to ask you one more thing, a very quick answer. What is the daylight between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party on the issues of Quebec, whether it's Bill 21 or Bill 96 or these new language laws that are promised here in Ottawa? There's not much difference there. What about minority communities in the province of Quebec, Mr. O'Toole?
Well, we've always said, and we said in our conversations with the Legault government, that minority language protections and service for Anglophone communities should be maintained, and they will be. The only difference is Mr. Trudeau is changing the position of the Liberal Party. Conservatives have always respected provincial jurisdiction, whether it's natural resources in Western Canada or whether it's language and culture in Quebec. It actually goes to our Confederation, our original founding. And Mr. Trudeau will say whatever it takes to get elected. We've seen that, so he's upsetting his money.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.